Owiti. Now, the African Climate Summit kick-started today with President William Ruto, who officially opened the summit, setting the stage for solution-based conversation. The head of state, who referred to Africa as the future of climate action, called for a shift from a victim mentality to solution-based deliberations. President Ruto challenged delegates attending the summit not to leave without proper mechanisms in place on how Africa could take its position as a leader in the decarbonization agenda. Purity Museonzuki attended the official opening ceremony and filed the following report.
The African Climate Week began on a high note with President William Ruto, who officially opened the summit, setting the stage for a conversation that will lean more towards the opportunities that the continent can offer and not Africa being a victim of the climate crisis.
We must be alert to the fact that they can sometimes blind us to the bigger picture. Delivering prosperity and well-being for Africa's growing population without pushing the world deeper into climate disaster is not just an abstract proposition or a mere wishful thinking. It is a real possibility proven by science and affirmed by emerging experience.
The head of state further saying that Africa was the future in the fight against the climate crisis.
You have not just stepped into a conference hall. You have entered the future. A future ripe with potential, driven by global partnerships committed to African prosperity, inclusive growth, and a livable planet for all of us.
Again, the president said that it was the high time that conversations regarding Africa were shifted from the north versus the south, and again, Africa fronting the solutions that they can offer and tap into the opportunities that the regreening is presenting.
This is no ordinary summit. We are not here just to talk about Africa or climate change in the usual way, which often accentuates our divisions. You all remember the North versus South, developed versus developing, polluters versus victims, and the whole of that conversation.
His sentiments were echoed by stakeholders attending this conference, reaffirming that in the next few days, the conversations will be on how Africa can be at the center in the fight against the climate crisis.
He made it very clear that when you look at the entire world, 30% of the minerals that are needed to drive what is called a decarbonization pathway are in this continent. Whether you're talking lithium, you're talking nickel, you're talking cobalt, they're in this continent. But the continent has been losing out for quite a very long time because value is not added to these minerals. Showcasing
different exhibitions right here at the KICC, of course, it's one of the reasons that shows that Africa is ready again to present some of the adaptation measures into the fight against the climate crisis. However, the African Union did acknowledge that the monies that were promised to the developing world are yet to be released. But the stakeholders and delegates attending this conference and summit say that will not be their main agenda. However, human rights activists feel that the loss and damage agenda should not be left behind because there are human rights that have been violated as a result of the climate action.
Promised resources by the developed countries' parties has not yielded tangible results, and even the $100 billion that you promised during the during the Paris Agreement, COP21, up to now, we haven't seen anything.
We need to think a little bit more seriously about what does it mean to live in a climate fragile environment, and particularly what it means for people in Kenya. I think 1 in 4 of us just don't get enough to eat. Our systems are collapsing, and therefore we must see this as an emergency.
The conference continues until Friday this week. Purity Museonzuki,